Today I'll try to build an application using ASP.NET Core with React.js, but my goal is to use GitHub CoPilot for generating most of the code. So let's see how we can do that and if I am successful doing it or not, because I am also trying it for the first time. I've tried Copilot with Visual Studio Code, but I have never tried to create an application end to end just with GitHub Copilot. So let's see if this is something even feasible. Copilot trial. Yeah, I'm going to use the .NET 7 and standard selection here, and let's go ahead and create. And in terms of the application itself, let's say we are going to create a user provider. So it's a simple application which will be used for creating and managing a user. So something like a user microservice. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and delete this weather forecast because we do not need that. And then I think I just sub delete, I copied. So let me delete controller. Let's go ahead and delete. Create. Before we create a controller, let's go ahead and create a new folder and let's name it as data access. Let's say data access. And here we're going to create a new class and let's name it as user repository, which is responsible for creating users. Let me increase the font size so that it's more visible. This seems to be too small in terms of font, and 24 might be good. Let's come here and let's create implementation for a data class to get data from user table, create and update. So I don't see the GitHub Copilot automatically prompting. So let's just move this comment from here and let's go here. So create implementation of a data access class to get, update, delete, insert, let's make it as read, update, delete data from user table using Dapper microRM. Let's see. So the Copilot is trying to get the code for me, and it created essentially a code here. Given that this code is created, I am going to insert this code. That did not work. So copy this, let's paste it here and just do this. Okay, so I don't have, of course, Dapper installed. So what I can do is I can go back here and I can install Dapper because I did not install it. So let me go ahead and install Dapper. And let me go ahead and install it. So this is good. And now I can go here and say, create a user class to represent the data from the user table. Now let's see. So it created the class. I can click on create new file. So we can save this class inside of the data access. So let's save it. Okay, now this class is created, and if I go here, of course the error is gone. So it has a get by user ID, insert user, update user, delete user. So, and if I say create a method to get all users. Okay, so it created, I can just copy. Oh, it already had, I missed it. Okay, so we have all the methods that we need. We created this I repository. And now I can just go ahead, and if I want, I can just extract an interface from it. So let's create a user repository, which will be created here, and we should be all good. Now let's try to create the controller class, right? So now same thing. I'm going to go and say, create a new web API controller class to all methods of the repo user repository class. Let's see what it does. And now it created a complete class. So let's create a new file, and then let's save it. And we can save it inside the controller folder. So let's save it. I go to the Solution Explorer, and we see the user controller. As you can see, the user controller is doing everything that we need. It even injects the user repository, and everything looks pretty good here. Now that we have the user controller, let's go here, and let's try to create dependency injection. So I can say create the dependency injection for the user repository and the IDB connection, where connection spring from config file. Let's try to do that, and let's see what it does. This did not work. So I can just change it a little bit. Say dependency injection for the user repository, where let's try this prompt. Sometimes we have to play around with the prompt because it might not give exact response, and sometimes we don't even know what are the AI ethics policies they have. So looks like it created the entire code again, and here finally it created a section for the service repository. So let's just add these two lines. That's all we need. So we can copy this two line, and we can come here and paste it. Now, as you can see, we have to change a couple of lines of code here, and let's update the, we have to install the package SQL connection. We should use the microsoft.data.sql connection because that's the new one. So I am trying to add it, and it is installed. So if I go back here, install, I can see the microsoft.data.sql client, yeah, which is added. And let's go back here, and there's no configuration, so it is again using builder dot configuration. So just configuration, and that should be good enough for our dependency injection, because we needed the IDB connection and we also needed the user repository. These are the only two things we needed. Now the problem I have is I don't have a SQL Server created. I closed the GitHub CoPilot. I don't know why I did this. So here in the views, I have GitHub CoPilot chat. So let me edit back. Now, let's say I want to create the database schema. So I can just say create the DB for the table. No, not DB schema. Yeah, DB schema, which I can then. So it created the DB schema for user, which I can just go and update. Now, given that just for the purpose of this demo, I don't have this database. I have to create one. Just for the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo the get users for the time being. And maybe if this video is interesting to everyone, if I get enough comment in the comment section, I will probably create another video with an extension for this one. So now let's go into, before I go into client app here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to return a new array of users where I'm going to comment this out. And I'm going to say new user ID is equal to 1, email is equal to .com, and name is equal to. So one thing I am noticing here is the Visual Studio Code actually has much better support when it comes to the GitHub Copilot, because it has a lot of prompt when writing itself, which I'm not seeing it in Visual Studio. So that's at least from the Visual Studio point of view, I think that's a negative point in my opinion, but I might be doing something wrong. So I'm going to try and see if it is me which is doing wrong, or it is because the extension for Visual Studio is not as powerful as extension for Visual Studio Code, which is also possible. So now let's get into the client app and let's look into app.js. And the app route has home. This is what it is doing, right? It's just taking the app routes.map. This is the home, which is the home page. So let's just, for the simplicity, let's just deal with the home page and not worry about any of the other things. So home is of course here. If we just go ahead and run this application now, the problem is in the program I have here the new SQL connection string, which is also probably going to fail. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to return null here, because we don't need the connection string right now. We are not going into database. I just want to run it and show how it is going to work, because I don't have a database right now running, and maybe something I can build later. But this demo or this video is mainly to focus on how we can use GitHub Copilot to build an application end to end. But I understand if I show the database also is going to make it much better in terms of an end-to-end capability. So let's see if I can do it in this video, or I'm going to have another video just to show the database connectivity part. So for now, let's just run this application and see it popping up, and then I'm going to go and change the home page. Instead of showing all this text, it is going to show the user from the user array. So I'm waiting for the build to start. Given it is doing the npm install, it is going to take some time for the project to load. So it is running this proxy so that it can start the React server, and it's going to start that soon. And here we go. We got the hello world and this CoPilot trial, home, counter, fetch data. This is the out-of-box implementation. Now let's go here and let's summon our CoPilot chat again. So here it is. So for CoPilot chat, I'm going to say now create or say an HTML to show all users from the API call using React.js. So this is what it has done. It has imported the React and a couple of other components. Space is very small. To show the entire code, I have to literally make this like the entire part of the window. This is the whole code that it has provided. So I can do the same thing. I can just import, and I'll just replace this with this import. Second thing, instead of export class, I'm going to use export function. Using export function is just more convenient. And I'm going to get rid of this. I also don't need the render anymore. And here what I can do is I can use this use effect to fetch the data. And then finally I can copy this div and return it. So here instead of this, I can have this div. So if we go back and if we look into the code now, the change code, we are using an user and set user with the state of empty. And then using use effect, we are just loading everything from user and then taking the data and setting it to as user, and then just doing a map and mapping everything out. So let me save this. And now if I go back here, I don't see any data. So let's see what is going on. If I refresh, so user method not allowed. Okay. So a couple of things happening here. First of all, my user running in a different port. Secondly, this is failing. So what I can do is here, let me go back. So let me just create a blank SQL connection instead. Let's name it as iUser repository. iUser repository. Now let's go back here. Let's go into the home. And instead of this, we can just say the whole thing. Let's save it. Go back. It's compiling. Let's refresh. I am still getting an error. And the error is, of course, the course is not enabled. So let's ask the prompt here, create we have to the API, and let's see. And it did that, so I can just copy this, go here, stop this, just do it here. Problem I have is this has created this code in some other language. Course in .NET 7. Okay, so let's see. We add this after user repository, and then we go ahead and just say app.use course policy here. That's more like it. Yeah, I think that's more like it. I could have copied and pasted the entire thing because it just rewrote the whole thing here anyway. So let's rerun. Now you might say that, well, it took almost close to an hour to build this application. I could do it in a similar time. Well, that is true for someone who knows how to work with C# and has a lot of experience. But think about this for a newcomer who joins your team and you want them to build an application, how much productive they could be using this. And you can see now it is showing up this, and we can continue and go on building this whole thing from our Visual Studio itself and not getting out of here using GitHub CoPilot. So that is something that I wanted to cover. I know I have not covered the database part of it, but I think the database part of it is a little bit disconnected from the Visual Studio. So technically also we are just going to create the thing here, the table, and then paste it into a SQL query analyzer or a pgadmin and take it from there anyway. So that is all I wanted to cover for today's video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to this channel and you think you are getting value out of this channel, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks so much for watching this video.